Hughes with us to go over all of the moves in the market today. Guys, let's talk about what the market is doing today. We are not seeing any kind of slowdown yet, are we?
No.
No.
We set new highs last week and we set new highs this week. It looks to me like we're on track to continue rallying for the next few weeks, couple of months, end of the year probably. Looking pretty good to me.
Yeah, I think we're in the don't fight the Fed moment right now. Markets want to go up, and I think you're going to be seeing new money coming in from the sidelines, and you can't forget the fact that there's already a nice base in the market because of all the passive money that's coming in on a regular basis. So yeah, I think it's all systems go.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about some of those market leaders today. Nvidia had some of the biggest moves today. Why are we seeing so many moves in Nvidia today?
I think Nvidia announced a new partnership with ChatGPT. Wasn't an open AI somebody,
OpenAI.
but like $100 billion in new data centers. So that's just amplifying the data center outlook. The demand for Nvidia chips just continues to grow, and that's what's driving that stock. I think today Nvidia set up and didn't close at a new high, but it did set. Oh, it's a new closing intraday high and a new closing all-time high and a new intraday all-time high. So it's a good move for Nvidia. Should signal some more rally ahead. Possibly get this stock. Let's see, from 80 to another $90 to $100 is what it looks like to me based on the chart.
Yeah, that's some good moves for this company. That's such a huge company. I feel like Nvidia hasn't done too much since earnings came out last month sometime. So this big move for Nvidia, is this good news for investors? Is this a sign to take a little break on Nvidia? What are your thoughts?
Oh, I think this is good news. I think that since the earnings report, we've seen some consolidation. The market moved down, tested support. It's been rebounding since. Today's action was extending that rebound, set a new high. To me, that's a bullish signal. So assuming that this market doesn't just, reverse course unexpectedly the next couple of days, I would expect to see Nvidia continue to trend higher over the next few weeks and months.
All right, let's talk about some other market movers today. Again, we saw that record-setting S&P 500 again. Let's talk about, we talked a little bit about, it's the Fed announcement is part of that. Are there any other moves that could be happening? Because we've been talking so much, everyone has been talking about the market slowdown normally happens at the end of September, early October. Do we see that happening at all? Are there any indicators or anything to watch coming up that might have that happening?
Well, there are some indicators coming up, but as far as the market slowing down, it doesn't look like it's going to happen. I mean, September could be some volatility, and we've seen a little bit of that over the last, 3 or 4 or 5 weeks. But with the Fed in play, like Chris was saying a minute ago, don't fight the Fed. The Fed has been tightening and holding the economy back for the last, couple of years. And now they're starting to ease off on the restrictions. So that's just going to allow the economy and businesses and consumers to, maybe not accelerate or reaccelerate real soon, but at least to breathe a sigh of relief and to just, continue with what they're doing, expecting some more good news down the road. And that's just all good news for the S&P 500, because ultimately it means that the outlook for earnings is still okay, it's still pretty good, and that probably what we're going to see are some upward revisions to the outlook. And then with the upcoming releases, we'll be looking for some more outperformance and also some more positive guidance, all tied to this economic shift that the Fed has signaled with their cutting rates last week.
Yeah.
All right, well, I want to move on to some market winners that we are seeing. Some of the big move-ups happening. Let's talk about quantum computing next. Chris, I know you and I have done videos in the past in quantum computing.
Yeah.
There was kind of this lull for a while over the summer where the quantum stocks weren't doing much of anything, but they've really taken off in the last week.
Yeah, I mean, it's moving higher on news because the technology is becoming more real. So what people were measuring as being decades out is now down to years out, and people are just optimistic that this technology is going to happen and be here sooner than a lot of people think. But we were just talking before we came on, and not all quantum stocks are doing well today. I know quantum computing stock, that's ticker symbol QUBT, that was down sharply today. They announced a public offering with institutional investors. So that stock's down. I noticed that D-Wave was down less than Quantum. It was only down about 3.25%. But so not the whole sector isn't going up, but there are certain stocks that have been up strongly in the past month.
Yeah, why do we think that is? I know you said that there's some news going on, but it seems like all of these quantum computing stocks absolutely move as a group. They go up
Yeah.
together, they go down together. So it is interesting that I'm sorry, the quantum one, that quantum computing, that stock went down today when the others are still going up. But even though it was down today a little bit, it's still up 30% for the month. Rigetti up 94% for the
Right.
month. That's a huge move.
So right, I'm looking at this chart, and this stock price did pull back today, and it's due to that dilutive sale that Chris was talking about. But even so, over the last few months and the last year, this stock has been trending higher, has been moving higher along with the rest of the quantum computing market. Today's move was an unexpected sell-off, did shave 13% off the
Right.
stock price, but it's showing support at a critical level, right in alignment with previous highs. To me, the candle formation is a Harami pattern, and we've got the confirming the smaller candle is in the upper half of the range of the previous larger candle, which is ultimately a bullish signal. So I would think that this market would probably consolidate at or near these current levels, these today's levels, these right around $20. But then I would also expect to see some more new highs come, not too far down the road, few weeks, maybe a couple of months, because these other quantum stocks are looking really, really hot. And ultimately, the story here is that it's raised some money, shored up its balance sheet, and so now it's even better positioned
Right.
to finish the journey, to get across that finish line, and come to market with some kind of a quantum product.
Yeah, I think that's the question that we have from viewers. Oliver had asked earlier about is now a time to get in or wait for even more of a pullback? Do we see these slowing down again? It feels like in these stocks, we've seen quite a bit of volatility, a kind of a cycle where they're in the news, then they're not in the news, and they don't really do much of anything. So, would you
Yeah.
suggest getting it now, so close to when they've had this recent rally?
I mean, right now it looks like it's presenting a pretty decent buying opportunity. I mean, you might not want to rush right into it tomorrow, but it might pull back a little bit to retest these critical levels. It's looking like around 1875 is one of my critical moving averages. That could be a good trigger point for the market if it continues to show support at that level. But of course, with any stock, there's going to be a risk that it could pull back further. Qubit and the other quantum computing stocks aren't making money right now, and that can be a real hindrance for the stock price action.
Right.
Yeah, it's such a good point that it's still early for these companies. So there's not a lot of revenue to talk about. So who knows why they would move or not move those catalysts a little bit. All right, we've got so many stocks to cover. I love to see all of the different stock suggestions coming in the chat. Again, sorry we were late today, everyone. Please continue to put what stocks you want us to cover in the chat. I'll get to as many as I can. That's what we do here on MarketBeat Mondays, is go over with kind of a fresh, cold look at some of the stocks you want to hear about. We have a few stocks we're prepared to talk about, just some of the bigger market movers that we want to cover before we get into the names that you have on the list and in the chat for us today. Let's get on to some of the two companies that we always follow on MarketBeat Mondays. Thomas, you're a huge fan of it. Let's talk about AMPX. This is that battery stock we've talked about many times. What kind of moves are we seeing there?
Well, right. I just put in an article this morning. It's probably already been published, but it's talking about how this is a textbook raging bull market. So the point of the article is that technical analysis depends on the charts, and we assume that all the knowledge is known by the market and it's shown in the charts. And with these kind of signals, you don't really need to understand the fundamental outlook necessarily. But because this is also a very strong fundamental story, the signals that are being given by the chart are all that much stronger. And it checks off all the boxes. You've got a rebound, we have accelerating price action, we've got rising volume, we've got convergent momentum indicators, we've got bullish signals in the MACD, or I mean in the stochastic. The market just moved to a new high last week, clearing these critical resistance points, bringing very, very robust targets into play, where this stock could easily be at $20, $21 before the end of the year. And assuming that this fundamental story continues to play out and it continues to build its pipeline and grow its revenue, we could easily move above $20. And then in that scenario, this becomes another situation where the stock could double again, from that $20 region.
Yeah, Thomas, I've got the analyst consensus price targets pulled up here. Any thoughts on when you have a company that's in this rapid growth phase? Do you even pay attention to analyst ratings? Do you just watch the most recent ones? What are your thoughts on a company that's seen this much growth right now?
All right. So my answer to that question, and any question when it comes to the analyst for any stock, is always take whatever the consensus rating and the consensus price target is with a grain of salt, because it doesn't really matter what that is so much as the trend and the sentiment. It matters how many analysts are covering the stock. So if there's more than 10, I'd call that a pretty strong number. Or if it's increasing, that's good because coverage is increasing. You also want to check the sentiment trend and see if sentiment is improving, because a moderate buy rating doesn't mean the same when the trend and revisions is downward as it does when the trend and revisions is upward. So if analysts are downgrading from buy to moderate buy, that moderate buy is pretty weak compared to when they're upgrading from hold to moderate buy.
Right.
Also with the price target, I think right now with AMPX, the price target is the consensus target assumes the market is fairly valued right about $12, so not much upside there. But again, the revision trend is positive, and so not only is the consensus rising and providing market support in that regard, the most recent targets are at the high end of the range, which puts it up around $18. And so that's a leading force for the market. We've got support with the consensus rising, and then that leading force with the high end range being so high above where the price action is now. So to answer that question, the analysts are pretty bullish on Amprius, and as far as the trends go, they're all very bullish as well, and it looks like it's got pretty good solid market support.
Very good. Well, let's talk about another one that you've been bullish on, Thomas. I know, Chris, we've talked about this plenty of times too.
Yep.
Let's talk about SoundHound. This company has had quite a very interesting chart. Pulling it up here, you see there's lots of hills and valleys in this one. It had a rally back in August, then went down again, and now it's going back up. Let's talk about why. Why are we seeing this rally in SoundHound?
Well, it's really an identical story to Amprius. It's because the fundamental story is bullish, and the market is caught up with that. Right now, what we have is hyper growth, and improving deal pipeline, and improving and accelerating outlook for growth. Profitability is on the table, and all this is leading the analysts to improve their outlook for revenue, earnings, and for the stock price. So we have lots of positive forces driving this market. And at the same time, now we have some pretty strong technical signals developing where volume is rising, momentum is bullish, the stochastic is showing a pretty strong buy signal, and we've also just recently broken to a new high. The breaking to a new high is pretty significant because it's right at the midpoint of the consolidation range. It's peaks and valleys you were just talking about, last year's peak and this year's valley. This critical resistance that we just crossed is at the middle of that range. And in this scenario, what could happen is this market will rise back to the top of that range real fast. And that's going to be another, 16 up to the $23 level. So that's another $7 on top of,
Right.
the $7-8 that's gained in the last, couple of weeks and couple of months.
Yeah, this is another one where it's rallying above those consensus price targets. Again, that's what we're seeing with a lot of these momentum stocks right now, especially in AI. Right now, the high end of the consensus is 18. Curious to see, Chris, any of your thoughts on whether you want to get into a stock when it's above that consensus price target, but on the way, there's still room to go to the high end of that analyst rating.
Yeah, I would. I'm with Thomas on this one. I don't see any reason why you wouldn't want to get involved here, because I think the move from 17 to 24 doesn't seem that far out of range. And I agree with Thomas. The analysts right now are saying that the stock looks fairly priced around 17. But, again, in addition to what Thomas was saying about analysts, I think you also have to look at when they're saying it. And we haven't seen a lot of people re-rate SoundHound since the earnings report. But there's been a lot of different things happening in the market since the earnings report. So I don't think you would hesitate to get in on SoundHound right now, especially if you're looking at where the stock might be by the end of the year, let's say.
All right, very good. Gonna rapid fire through a few more names here. We've got lots of different names coming in the chat. Thanks again for everybody watching today and throwing out some of those names. As we expected, Archer and Joby Aviation are asked again. Sharman wants to know about institutional buying for Archer Aviation too. So that's an interesting question. Let's talk about just the kind of stock movement that we've seen for these two.
Yeah, it looks like Archer's pulled back a little bit. I'll take Archer, and I know Thomas will take Joby, but Archer's pulled back just a little bit today, but it's been up for the last 5 days. I touched on it last week. There was a couple of announcements for Archer. One had to do with the White House, and I know that Joby was included in that. I missed that last week. The viewers let me know about that, but I think what you're seeing right now is just it might just be a little bit of people trying to take some profit depending on when they got in the stock. But as far as the specific question about institutional ownership, in the last 3 quarters, institutional ownership's been up. Actually, that's extending out to about the last 4 quarters. And it's up to about 60% of the stock is owned by institutions. So, that should be reducing some of the volatility in the stock. But, then again, this is still an emerging sector right now. And, but I think it should give investors that are looking at these stocks for the long haul, I think that gives you some comfort because you're seeing institutions jump in. The dollar amounts aren't that significant. We're talking in the millions. They're not billions of dollars of investment, but there is institutions in it.
Very good. Well, let's talk about Joby really quick. I'll just pull up that chart quick, Thomas. What's happening with that one?
All right. So Joby has had a couple of really positive news developments. I think one of the most important ones is that new deal with Uber, which is going to connect Uber's ride-hailing business with Joby's ride-sharing infrastructure and their ride-sharing business. I think what they're doing is really setting up and opening the floodgates to revenue. So as soon as they get their commercial licenses, they'll be able to hit the ground running. I'm looking at the charts. I'm comparing Joby with Archer, and it still looks to me very much like the market is saying that Joby is the one to pick. ACHR is still trading beneath highs, beneath critical resistance points, where Joby has recently set a high and is bouncing off those comparable resistance points, confirming them as support. It's got good chart indications with rising volume and convergent MACD. Certainly on a path to commence operations sometime next year. Has a very visible pipeline, of business that's growing with these deals that it's making. I think that right now the rebound looks pretty strong. It's gaining traction above some moving averages. We could be back to 18 pretty quickly, possibly 20 within the next couple of weeks, and setting new highs again before the end of the year, just based on the news cycle. Expecting some more good news to come out.
Good. And I think with these ones, they're names that come up every week because there are so many different moves in them. So if you haven't signed up for MarketBeat's SMS text alert system, make sure to do that too. That's texting YouTube to 68285. I don't have my full screen right now, but 68285 to YouTube. That'll get you signed up for those alerts so you can watch those and get all of those stock moves right to your phone. It's a great way to follow these popular names that, again, a lot of our viewers are interested in. They come up every week. So we like to give you the tools that you can use to actually follow those. Let's go on to some other names that are popping up, some interesting charts. These are names that we've talked about on MarketBeat Monday before. IREN, IREN, let's look at that one. And then we're also going to look at Microvast, MVST. That's a really small stock. I can pull that one up just because I have that chart ready right now. It looks like the stock is up 41% in the last month and about 15% in the last 5 days. This one has had some volatility, but also growth. It continues to grow. It continues to be an interesting player. Thanks to those who.
Which one are you on?
MVST, Microvast.
All right. Microvast, right?
Oh, I'm looking up IREN right now, Bridget. So
yes,
that chart looked pretty hot. I just saw that one a second ago.
Very hot.
Yep.
MVST, right? MVST. The chart looks like the market has hit a bottom and it's gaining traction. We recently moved above the cluster of moving averages, pulled back in August and September. confirmed that cluster as support. Now we're rebounding higher. Looks like we're pretty close to setting a multi-year high. I think if we get that, that's a pretty bullish technical signal that would indicate that this market has completed a reversal and that we should expect an uptrend to ensue after this. Let's see what the news flow is saying. Microvast.
Yeah, this is a much smaller company, but it's interesting that
Right.
it keeps popping up on as a
Right.
question, and different people are bringing it up too. So it's
Yeah, there are
probably a
certainly
stock.
there's some caution in the news flow and the chatter, but it looks like battery technologies, electric vehicles, cell chemistries. All right, it's a battery company. It seems like it's doing all right. Um,
Yeah,
Short
not a
interest
lot
is
of
mildly high, but not too bad.
and not a
Um,
lot of analyst coverage. That's the other thing I've got pulled up right now. So
yeah, right.
that's something to watch too.
Looks like it's growing at a pretty solid pace. Um, yeah, I mean, it looks okay. You know, it's not like a really robust, awesome story, but it certainly looks bullish. The chart looks decent. You said the analyst coverage isn't that great. We got two analysts. Oh, yeah. So we're well above the analyst consensus, only two covering it. The most recent activity was an upgrade to buy from Zacks. That's over the summer. That's pretty decent. Um, Ownership institutions are buying, pretty stoutly, 10 to 1 it looks like. Ownership is kind of low.
Yeah.
But I mean, it looks like this might be one that is starting to get some attention. It certainly appears to be in an uptrend, and the trends are positive. They're not real strong, but it does look like a stock that could continue to move higher.
Well, let's move to IREN. IREN is
Yeah.
definitely a stock that's seen a little bit more movement, Chris. Let's pull that one up.
Yeah, so this is a company that they're in the data center. They're in the they were in Bitcoin, or they're still in Bitcoin, but it's a play
Right.
on both data centers and Bitcoin. And the stock's made an incredible move here in the last just month. It's up 96%. It's up over 10% in the last 5 days. It's made a parabolic move off the 50-day moving average. But right now, MACD looks strong. It doesn't look like there's really any indication that's going to reverse anytime soon. It is coming in a little bit overbought right now, but the stock is in line with a lot of the AI infrastructure trends, and it's doing it with sustainability, with renewable energies. I love this. I love what I'm seeing here on the chart. Is now the absolute best time to get in on it? No, you're probably going to want to wait for it to pull back a little bit, but I don't see a reason why this stock's not going to be going higher in the short term.
Yeah, just like the compound on what Chris was saying, the candles do look like it's a very strong rally, but it's losing some momentum. Today's candle especially has got it set up to potentially top out, but just Monday. So when I'm looking at the weekly candles, we wouldn't want to make a call on that till the end of the week. But if this market were to close this week where it is now, it looks like it's at a top. We'd want to wait till the next week and see if the market pulls back or moves sideways. If the market were to pull back next week, we could get a pretty strong pullback based on how much the market has risen in the last, since the summer. It's up like 300%, maybe 400%. So in that situation, it could pull back all the way to about $28. Other than that, you're just going to want to watch and see what happens over the next week or two to kind of get a gauge of if it's going to be a sideways bull market consolidation or if it's going to be more of a correction and sell off and before we get a rebound and new highs.
Right.
Very good. That's a good look at that one. I've got a few names that were earlier on in the comments from some of our regulars. Thanks everyone again for sticking with us during our technical difficulties earlier. eHelp has some great ones to look at here. I'm going to give you each one of those. GSAT, Global Star Satellite Services, and then AQST, Aquestive Therapeutics. I'll have both of you guys look up. AQST, Aquestive Therapeutics. I'll have both of you
Okay.
look those two names up. And then while you're looking those up, I'm just going to pull up the chart for John wanted to know or talk about ASTS. This is one of my favorite ones to talk about because I think the idea of cell phone service while you're out on a hike in the middle of nowhere sounds great. So I like this company. I'm going to pull up the chart a little bit. It looks like there's been some recent moves on this one. Up about 18% in 5 days. I'm not sure if there's any news on ASTS, but there is some good action. It had such a fall at the end of the summer here. It really dropped down quite a bit. And I think that was a post earnings move, if I remember correctly.
I think if we're looking at ASTS, I think it's kind of interesting that you bring it up because you also gave us the ticker symbol for GSAT, and I think you're looking at two stocks that are trading pretty much right with each other. You're both looking at a similar market in terms of that space-based wireless communication. I certainly agree with you, Bridget. This is a market that you're going to want to. This is one of those markets that it's in the right area where investors want to get in. I'm just trying to pull up the charts right now, Bridget. So
ASTS, it's kind of similar to what we were talking about before. We had a really strong rally with convergent MACD that suggests the all-time highs will be retested or surpassed. But right now, the market's rebounding after that correction, showing support at a strong level. Looks like it could continue to move higher. I would be very surprised if we did not retest the all-time high pretty soon and then also move to a new high, just because of how quickly revenue is supposed to ramp over the next couple of quarters, starting this quarter, because there's systems coming online. They're going to start providing coverage, not globally, but in all the major global markets this year, and have near complete coverage by the end of next year, early 2027, so far as I know.
Yeah, do any comments, Thomas? I've just got it pulled up really quick here about a recent downgrade. It was September 9th, so that's the most recent update from analysts, and that was a downgrade from a price target of $62 to $43. Any fear associated when you see a downgrade like this, and you don't see a lot of other positive moves for the upside on this stock?
Well, right. Well, one downgrade isn't a trend. One downgrade could create a buying opportunity. If all the analysts start reducing their price targets, then I would say there's probably going to be a cap on the market. But as it is right now, the trends are more bullish than not, and still leading this one higher.
Good. All right, well, let's move on to those other names. I've got the chart pulled up for GSAT. Tell me about this one, Chris.
Yeah, so again, you're talking about a company. This is right in that same area as AST Space Mobile. I like the chart here. The weekly candle chart. It's consistent, and the MACD is reversed nicely. So I'm looking at the stock right now. Let's see where it's at. 36. It's not. It doesn't have a lot of analyst coverage on this, so we're kind of. So there's nothing really to see there, and it doesn't have as much institutional ownership as AST. But I think that you're looking at a chart. It's been up. This thing only went public a little while ago, right? No. Why is the chart not doing that? Okay.
You see, our chart isn't quite working all the way.
There it is. Now it is. Okay. So right now it's approaching. It's approaching the highs it made in 2021 and 2022, and again, I think with what I'm seeing with the chart, I think that's achievable. Now, can it push beyond that? That's going to be the question, but I don't see a reason right now where the charts are slowing down at all.
Right. We need to do some more digging into the deal pipeline and the revenue outlook, but this is one of those situations where ASTS and GSAT are both well positioned in a very good hot market. But the ASTS action kind of says that the market has picked that one over GSAT.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. It's the first time I've heard of that company, but it would be interesting article either of you if you want to talk about the competitors in the satellite mobile space, if there are others
Right.
or if it's just
Yeah.
these
Right.
two, because it's definitely an up and coming sector that I think investors are paying attention to because it has the potential to really change the whole story on cell service. So
Oh, it
would
does.
be
And
interesting to get a little deeper dive into this. So maybe that's a video topic
Yeah.
for another
right.
time.
Well,
Let's
just
move
what I
on to
know.
the. Go ahead.
So just what I know about ASTS, because I don't know anything about GSAT, but ASTS has deals with all the major global carriers already. That's part of its deal pipeline. That's part of what's been driving its stock price higher. It's part of the revenue outlook. Uh, yeah, that stock's going higher over time. What happens with GSAT really depends on what their deal pipeline looks like.
If I'm not mistaken, I think GSAT didn't they have some news with Apple this year, or am I thinking that was with ASTS? I'm not sure,
Oh, I don't know.
but because I think at one point I might have the two companies confused there, but
Yeah, I'm not sure either. Again,
Yeah.
we're doing just a quick cold read on some of these, so we haven't had the time to dive into all of them a bunch. I want to get on to, I'm not even sure, we've got about another 10 minutes left that we can go. Let's get in a few more names that are out there. There's quite a few coming into the chat that do look interesting, so I want to cover them if we can. Let's get to the AQST, Aquestive Therapeutics, at least I think that's the name.
Right. Pharma company, they've got an allergy treatment. What I see in the news flow is that the FDA removed a hurdle. They didn't make an approval, and there wasn't any kind of positive news, but they removed a hurdle and kind of cleared the pathway for this drug. So I think if the results are good, the stock could continue to move higher. But what I'm seeing right now is that we hit a top at $6. That top's been in place since 2022, 2021. Looks like it could be a pretty solid top, unless we have some positive news come out to catalyze the market and give it a reason to keep buying.
Good. That's a good quick look at that one. All right, we've got lots of other names here. One that has come up a few different times is Plug, Plug. We will get
okay.
that one in to look at. It's so hard to pick some other ones to look at because there's so many different names coming in. Let's just pick, I think this is one we looked at earlier, RZLV. I think we pulled that one up before we got started. RZLV, this is one that came in comments on some of the videos during the week too.
Oh,
So
yeah.
as you guys are watching videos throughout the week, if you have things that you want us to talk about during MarketBeat Monday, just put it in the comments and I'll add it to my list. I usually have these on my list and we look at them just before we get started. So we'll do that one for sure too. RZLV. And then the other one was Plug, Plug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plug.
I'm looking at Plug right now.
Yeah. Plug. I mean, it used to be a stock that I really liked because hydrogen fuel cells seemed like such a good idea, but it really has gone nowhere in that time. Today, it looks like it gained over 20%. There are some, glimmers of good news in the last report. Nothing that's really truly exciting. I think the big story here is that short interest was 30%, and now they're covering. With that in play, the market could rise real sharply, but I'm not expecting to see much of a reversal until there's really a significant change in the fundamental story for hydrogen fuel cells, which I don't think that there is one right now. They make power, but they're not real strong, and they're not a real viable alternative to many of the applications that we would need them to be useful for.
I'm excited to hear that you'd heard of that company. It's a tiny little small cap company. So the fact that you'd covered
Plug.
it before is interesting.
Oh my gosh, we used to cover Plug like every week.
Yeah.
I mean, because it was part of the EV and the greenification story. I mean, they had such a good story with how much infrastructure they were building, how many projects they had. But then I think it was in 2023, funding and balance sheet issues came up, and they just haven't been able to gain traction with revenue.
Yep.
All right, guys, let's move on to this Rezolve. I have RZLV pulled up. It looks like it's down on the 5-day, but up like crazy amount over the last month.
Yeah, this is a company that's somewhat new to me, but so what they've got, Bridget, is they have a proprietary visual search model. So it's basically something that's allowing people to, point their camera at an item and and search for it that way rather than having to memorize model numbers or product names and all that stuff. So that's what's been drawing a little bit of interest into the stock, because it's kind of bringing that Gen AI into the retail and the consumer space.
Right.
Let me look.
It's AI that connects the money flow. People that spend with people that sell, and that's where profits are made, and that's where stock prices go up.
Interesting.
I like that. Yeah.
We all like to see stock prices go up. That's great. I'm looking.
No, I like the description of it. It's connecting the money. Yeah, it's really,
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I've got
very strong chart in the short term, but
yeah.
Right.
The consensus price target, I've got the analysts up. Again, very strong buy rating from all 9 analysts. Quite a few differences on what the price targets are, but that's always positive to see, right?
Let's see what's going on.
yeah, it looked like it.
So look, 9. I think 9 is a good number of analysts. It's not a lot, but it's enough to get a good firm grip on their sentiment ratings and their price targets. They rate the stock unanimously as a buy. That's a pretty significant. Consensus says 15% upside. That's pretty decent. The trending consensus is upward. So the revisions have been higher than consensus. They're leading the consensus higher. It's risen over $1 in the last month. The high end range is in around $9. So that's a double digit upside, 170 from 730. Divide that by 730. That's 25% upside almost. If you assume they continue to put out good news and keep people happy, especially considering like revenue and earnings. They don't have any history that I'm tracking right here. Let's see what this one says. Where'd it go? Yeah, we're not tracking any earnings right now, I don't think. This may be a pre-revenue story. But yeah, assuming we have good news coming out, I think that this stock could continue to move higher too.
Yeah. Interesting one to look at. We've got just a couple more names and then we're going to be done for the day. This is again, we got started late, so we're going a little bit later than we normally do. But one we talked about before we started too, it's come up. It's Oklo, OKLO. This is a nuclear stock we talked about lots of times. And if you are interested in investing in nuclear stocks, I did an interview today. It's going to post later this week on Thursday, I believe. It's a really in-depth look at who's winning the nuclear race right now. Jeffrey Neal Johnson, one of our writers out there, he really does kind of a deep dive into the tech and the science behind these companies. So that video coming out on Thursday. Make sure to tune back in for a list of some really good nuclear leaders out there. But let's talk about Oklo. What's going on with that stock?
Well, I mean, what's not going good with this stock?
Right.
I mean, seriously, they're still, a year or two away from getting maybe 3 years from getting their first reactors launched for actual commercial operations. But it's the best positioned of all the SMR stocks because of its highly visible pipeline. It's got incredible amounts of support from the White House. The news last week, I think it was last week when Trump was in the UK, making new deals, arrangements for the UK and America to join together to create nuclear powerhouse infrastructure. Great news for this stock. I think they've announced plans recently to build a large nuclear fuel recycling facility in Tennessee. Also huge news because it's a revenue stream aside from producing power, but also plays into their own power production because it will allow them to make their own fuel more cheaply than they can buy it. All just totally good news for the stock price. Last week, the stock rose 30%.
Yeah. It was trading right around.
Oh, no. Last week, it rose by 63%.
Right. It was trading right around the analyst's average or the consensus target around September 8th. And then in the last 2 weeks, it's blown past that. So,
right. Just the deal pipeline and the news and the analysts are all playing into this market.
Yeah, this has been quite a huge growth story. And again, it's a stock we've talked about on this channel many times. So if you were in on Oklo earlier, congratulations. Let us know in the chat if you got in when we've talked about it. I feel like we've been talking about this one for almost 6 months maybe. So huge upside for investors who were in early on Oklo. We've been saying Oklo, but I just found out I think it's Oklo. So
right, Oklo, right?
Yeah,
that was me. I did it. I'm sorry.
Investors are going to want to watch the volume on this one, Bridget, because the volume's starting to slow down. Now today, it it held at that high. It tried to go down, but the market
Right.
wanted, but the volume's down. If you're looking to see this thing go up, really grind up higher, you're going to want to see volume increase a little bit more.
Well, right.
But the otherwise the rally might get a little tired. But it was encouraging that it still closed higher today,
Oh yeah.
even though it was, but
I
the
think
volume was down sharply today.
Well, right. I think today's move was pretty good because we did get that pullback. There was some selling and some profit taking. The market confirmed support above the middle of last week's candle, which to me is a bullish signal, and then reversed and made that new high. Today's volume is down from last Friday, but last Friday's is the highest in 6 months. Today's volume is also a high for several months, not counting last Friday. Together, they equal the highest 2 days, also in 6 or 7 months. And then looking at the weekly candle, if volume continues this week to be elevated, I would expect to see the weekly volume maybe not match last week, but be very comparable to it, which is all pretty strong for the market.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, it's up like 500% in the last couple of months. It's going to pull back without revenue, and with shorts getting into the market, potentially the pullback could be real big. Don't be surprised when it happens. Keep your stops tight. If you got the stock, sell out when it starts to sell off. And then when it hits the next bottom, get right back into it.
Yep.
Solid advice. Don't be surprised to see it move, because I think when you see a move this big, that's solid advice to stay to watch out for that. Okay, we're going to do go ahead.
Sorry, Chris already said there is a convergence in the MACD, a very strong one. So assuming that there is no pullback, this market will continue to move higher. And if there is a pullback, we will at least retest the all-time highs, if not also move higher to new highs.
Very good. All right, last individual stock, and then we're going to finish out with talking about two other sectors of finance that we've had a couple of questions on. Let's talk about Applied Digital. It's the darling of the show. We were talking about it when it was, I think, around $5 or under $5, and now it's up about 25 right now. Had such a really good last 5 days, up 23% in the last 5 days. Sharman wants to know if now is a time to get in, or if there's too much momentum here to keep waiting.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to chase this one right now. It looks like it's still got some room to move higher before it hits its next resistance point, probably about $4 maybe. But it looks like that next resistance could be, strong enough to hold the market in check. If not, cause a correction. Whether or not we move higher, I think, will depend on some more news and some actual results. But right now, it looks pretty strong.
Yeah, it's been a really good week. Again, let us know. I love seeing the comments from people who say that they were in early on Oklo and got some really good returns on that one. So let us know on Applied Digital. Were you one of the early investors when we were talking about it a few months ago? Are you still holding on and still getting those good returns? Is this one you're holding long term, or one that you're going to just keep short term and sell in a high? Let us know. I like to hear this conversation happen in the chat too. It's beneficial. Let's do to finish out today, guys. I want to talk about gold and Bitcoin. We had a question about Bitcoin market. I know gold hit another new all-time high. What's behind the gold market right now?
Well, Thomas and I'll start, and Thomas will pick it up. What I was saying before we started, Bridget, was gold's going higher, and investors, if you're thinking about getting involved in it, you got to take away some of the noise you're hearing about people buying gold bars at Costco's and all this. This is being fueled largely by the fact that there's a lot of central bank buying of gold. And that's going to continue with an interest rate environment that's moving lower. That's only going to be another catalyst for gold. It's not going to be something that's going to make gold any less attractive. The reality is a lot of these central banks are assuming that inflation is going to tick higher, or at the very least, it's going to stay stubbornly where it's at, which is still above the Fed's preferred target for some time. And that's bullish for gold.
Right. in addition, with the central banks, a lot of that central bank demand is coming from emerging markets. They're buying the gold because it helps to shore up their balance sheets, helps reduce volatility, and strengthen their own currencies. In addition to this, you got to think about how rapidly the middle class is growing right now globally, also, especially in emerging markets. And a rapidly advancing middle class has demand for jewelry. There's also demand for industrial uses of gold and investment uses of gold. So there's just huge inflows of money going into gold. And this is also on top of the backdrop of all the trillions of dollars of stimulus that went into the market during the pandemic period.
Yep.
Now, with rates falling and the dollar weakening, the price of gold, I mean, really could just continue to move higher. And then my final thought, too, is gold is finite. Until we're able to go out into space and grab one of those asteroids that are made of gold, the amount of gold on Earth is limited. Most of it's already been recovered. What is left to get recovered is becoming harder and harder to get, and everybody's buying it and hoarding it. So there's just less of it around to be bought. And so with that kind of supply demand imbalance in place, again, gold prices are probably just going to continue to rise.
Very good discussion on that. Very last point, talking about Bitcoin, wanted to answer that question. It looks like maybe the market is down right now. I haven't looked. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to look at what Bitcoin has been doing.
I know Bitcoin was down pretty sharply this morning. It was down around the 112 range. Looking to see where it's at now. Oh, it's right around 112,000 again.
Yeah, right.
Bitcoin. Is there a specific question, Bridget, or are they asking just in general what's
going on with that? And then if now is a good pullback to be looking at getting into that, or any stocks that might be related to Bitcoin too.
Well, Bitcoin stocks are iffy.
Right.
I mean, if you've watched us before, we know we think about those things, especially the ones that are trying to convert their balance sheets into Bitcoin. They're just burning themselves to death. The return for investors is highly questionable. As far as Bitcoin goes, what I'm seeing here, we've set new all-time highs above 100,000, 110,000, a couple months ago, and we've been consolidating to the side since then. But support is above the previous all-time highs, so we're still in a bull market. Just waiting for the next catalyst to drive it to a new high.
All right, very good. Any other closing thoughts on things to watch in the market this week for investors, things that could be market movers this week?
You're going to have the PCE inflation index come out on Friday, but I think most analysts already figure they pretty much already know what the number is going to be, because you've already had the PP, the producer price index, PPI and CPI, and I think they pretty much know what's going to happen. To me, I think the more interesting one, if we're looking at economic indicators at all, is you're going to want to look at the jobs number, which is going to come out not this Friday, but a week from Friday, October 3rd. That's going to be, I think, the next big potentially significant market moving event, because if that continues to show job weakness, it's just going to accelerate the idea of more cuts by the end of the year.
Good. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for your time today. And again, viewers out there, thank you so much for your patience today. I know we were a little bit late, but join us again next week. We'll be right on time at 3 o'clock. All right, at 4 o'clock at market close. We'd love to have you join us then too. Thanks for all of the great stock ideas in the comments and in the chat today. Sorry I couldn't get to them all as usual, but we'll try to get to them again next week. As always, everyone, thanks for joining us and happy investing.